On this edition of the Essendon BigFooty podcast, I'm joined by F-Dog and Herd is my hero as we preview the Carlton game and we provide our analysis on the charges against Essendon. All that and more on this edition of the Essendon BigFooty podcast. Yes, welcome everyone to this edition of the BigFooty Essendon podcast. As always, I am the prosecutor, and joining me this week we have F-Dog. Welcome to you, F.
What's up, boys?
And I have Herd is my hero again. Welcome to you.
Yeah, lads, how you going?
I'm going well. So, as has been stated before, our agenda for tonight looks pretty simple. We'll be looking at the Carlton game, and probably looking at ways that we won't get our asses kicked, as optimistic as that might sound at this point. And we will also be having a look at the charges that have been dropped on the Essendon Football Club and Corcoran, Herd, Thompson and Reid. But for now, I guess we'll get the optimistic stuff out of the way first, and I'll ask you both what your highlight of the week is. I think I'll start with you, Herd is my hero. What was your highlight of the footballing week?
Highlight of the week was pretty much Hurdy just telling the AFL to get stuffed. I think it was it's been a long time coming. I'm not entirely sure how the entire thing will play out, but seeing him come out and just pretty much be relentless in his words, seeing Hurdy get really fired up was just fantastic to see for me.
And you, F?
It's really hard to find a positive this week. Probably the fact that two of our biggest rivals lost this week in Collingwood and Richmond.
Yeah, it's always a pleasant week when they lose, isn't it?
Yeah, but on the flip side, it was Hawthorn and Carlton who beat them, so that's a bit of a negative.
Also, I'll add to the negative that if we're finding joy from other teams losing, we really are becoming North Melbourne, aren't we?
Yeah.
Difference is I'm not I'm not into the media. I don't own my own website and edit everything.
Oh, well, once you start quoting yourself from Twitter, that's when you know you're in trouble. In any case, we'll get on to the Carlton game, and after what was a shocking loss on the weekend to North Melbourne, what particularly needs to change from that game to this game? And I guess from the previous 4 weeks, is there any one issue that you see that needs changing, or is it a more broad mindset issue? I'll start with you, F.
I think there's two things. Like, our effort and attitude on the weekend I thought was excellent too. But two things that stood out to me were, one, we turned the ball over so many times. It wasn't funny. And two, we were missing fairly simple shots. At three-quarter time, I think it was 13-10 to 6-12. If you flip that, we're right in the game, and yeah.
Yep, and what about you, Herd is my hero? Was there anything that really stood out to you?
Obviously, what Ethan said was this: the horrible sort of turnovers that we were getting everywhere. As soon as, even across halfback, trying to get the ball going forwards and everything, trying to do flary little handballs, which, you know, worked at the start of the year when we were playing really exciting footy and no one could keep up with us. But watching them try and do it now with the mindset the boys have got is horribly hard to watch. Watching them just try to go those little fancy handballs, looking away and everything, missing it completely, or getting, you know, to the guy far too quickly so he's dropping it. Watching that is something, it's just frustrating as hell to watch. And also, probably those simple shots as well. Goal kicking hasn't been an issue too much for us through this year. There's a little patch in the middle there. It was a real issue. We had to have a look at it. It improved slightly, probably because we were, the ratio improved slightly because we were hardly getting any shots on goal in. But yeah, that as well was probably just something that we really needed to have a look at. That's a very basic sort of skill that you need in the game of Australian rules football, and for us to be missing shots like that is it's extremely frustrating, especially for people who are, or players who are meant to be proper forwards.
Well, we all do love a scapegoat, so do any of you see any players that need to go out for this weekend, or any that really need to come in to help boost this side? I guess Herb, my hero, do you want to keep going?
I don't think it's too much of a personnel issue. I think there's a few players there who obviously they've been affected by what's going on. I think David Zaharakis' confidence is shot. He doesn't look like half the player he was at the start of the year. Really struggling. I don't know why that is. Could be a little small niggling injury. I'm not entirely certain. There's a couple of players there who I don't think they're going to be at Essendon next year. I'm not sure about Stuart Crameri. He just doesn't do enough for me at this point in time. I'm not sure if it's again the same sort of thing what's going on with Asada and everything, but he just doesn't appear to care at this point in time. The ferocity and everything that we saw in his first couple of years at Essendon is just gone. He's a shadow of the player he was. I think that's something that needs to be either addressed or it just needs to be addressed. Something needs to be done about it.
Yep, F, you got anything to contribute with that?
With Zaharakis, didn't Ed say he had really bad back issues or something?
From memory, he said he got a hairline fracture from his clash in the Port Adelaide game, was it? Or is it the Bulldogs game?
that would be it.
One of the two.
So that's obviously affecting him. I think Crameri should go. I'll be honest, Crameri is probably the most overrated player at Essendon, apart from Hurley. And I also think, didn't they say Comer and Bellchambers would be forced outs as well?
I think they're carrying some injuries, yeah. I think Comer's one was disappointing. He was sent for a scan, I think, but knowing the way that our board is at this point in time, he's probably going to be in, much to the dismay of everyone.
Yeah, but I don't want Bellchambers to miss. I think he's our leading goal scorer, for crying out loud.
Sadly enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think he needs to be... People are criticising him because he's being played as the first forward. He needs to be the second or third.
Yeah.
We need Hurley back this week. We should have either Danaher or Gumbleton plus Bellchambers forward. And I also think Jetta should be out for Collier, but,
Yeah, I think there's a few players in the reserves who are kind of unlucky at the moment. I think Kavanagh, Collier, essentially those two, and players like Comer and Jetta as well have been really lucky in recent weeks. So while, they might be the bottom couple of players in the side, I still think that, other players need to be given a turn, especially in when the season's basically shot, let's be honest here.
Yeah.
But I also like to see Lockie Dalglish stay in the side. I thought he wasn't terrible. He was promising, if anything. He was
very impressive, yeah.
Exactly. He didn't look overawed by the situation. So I'd like to see him stay in. I'd like to see Kavanagh come in, and I'd also like to see Joe Danaher play out the rest of the year. So
yeah, he did play a little bit. Joe Danaher, he did very well last week in terms of the efforts and everything. Goal kicking wasn't there, but you just get the feeling he's cooked. He looks tired.
Yeah, but I'd argue that in the last quarter they played him on the ball and he looked I won't say prolific, but he looked perhaps the best around the ground that he had looked to this point. Because he only got the one hit out, but it was his work as in moving around the ground, as in like a cruiser type.
Yeah.
Having said that, I don't think he's a ruckman's arsehole. But, but having said that, I'm not so sure I'm buying into this tired, I think the premise going around that he is tired. And I'd just like to see him stay, because if he kicked those 4 points straight, well then that's a much different game. 4 goals, 11 touches, and I just think he's the best, he's the most, he's got the best potential in our side to be able to actually kick a bag of goals. Or even generate scoring shots, which we seem to struggle with our forwards as it is.
Very much, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to see him stay in, because we've got, 3 games left at most in the season. There's nothing to
Maybe
lose.
4 if we somehow manage to win a final.
If we play Richmond twice in a row, we can make it 4. But any case, so I guess, if we got the changes we wanted and all that sort of stuff, how do we actually beat Carlton? Because it's one thing...
Score more points than them.
Well, that's the basic gist of it, but but I guess how do we go about doing that? How do we go about achieving that? So Carlton have been criticised a lot of playing with a lot of taggers and all that sort of stuff. However, they came in against Richmond on the weekend, and they were down by about 30 points at one stage, early on in the game, and they managed to find the resolve to come back after being heavily beaten up in the press over the state of their list and state of their players. So I guess Carlton have got some form back, and with that they seem to have almost youthful tenacity. It was players like Menzel and Graham and Mitch Robinson who stood up. So I guess, who do we... do we tag any specific players? Do we have to go in with a defensive mindset? Is it our offense? Where do you see this game being won? Do you want to go first, F?
Yeah, I would tag Andrew Walker. Yeah, I think if we go head-to-head midfield to midfield, I think we've got them covered. I'll be honest with you. Even with our few outs, their midfield isn't that good. I would tag Andrew Walker because he's their real drive from defence, and when he's down, they tend to struggle with that in that area. So, yeah, and up forward if they use Henderson, Casbolt and Wade, I would just I wouldn't play Carlisle on Wade again. I would play Carlisle on Casbolt, Hooker on Wade, because he has a good record against Wade from memory. And I guess that leaves Pears on Henderson.
Yep.
Which I'd be nervous about.
Alright, and what about you, who's my hero?
First things first, you get a big heavy footy and lob it into Mick's head. Second, I think the key thing for Carlton is that their forward line last time nearly tore us a new arsehole. Waite has one good game every season, and, well, he could be 2, and he managed to do it against us earlier in the year. As I said, I think it would probably be a really good thing for us to try and play a lockdown role on Waite, whether that's Pears, Carlisle, Hooker, whoever. I think it would be probably beneficial for us to have Carlisle playing on Casbolt and having Hooker play as the man-on-man version on Waite. And if the ball's coming in a certain way, because Waite's going to be their leading forward target most times, if Jake can get into a position where he can play third man up and affect the contest, that would probably be working out so much better in our favour. We will probably see Jake Carlisle go down forward at some point during the game, I'd suspect, as he did last time. He pretty much turned the game in our favour. I think we need to have Jakey Melksham in the middle, in the guts from the get-go, and just have him just go ballistic, really, because he has been, for mine, one of the best players in the second half of the season. He's been much maligned. I am completely honest in the fact that I used to really dislike him as a player. I never thought he would make it in the Essendon side, but he's turned it around. Good for him. Kudos to him. I think we need to really focus on the strengths that we've been showing over the past few weeks. So which isn't much. They are very few and far between. Jake Melksham has been fantastic. Get him to do as much as he possibly can. Jakey Carlisle has, he hasn't been as impressive in the past few weeks as he has been earlier in the season, but get him to play a third man roll up, similar to what Fletcher does. That'd be about it. I think, as F said as well, just the midfield to midfield battle will be pivotal, but if we do go head to head, then I think we have them covered.
Yeah, I think you raised an interesting point with having Hooker on Waite. See, I personally wouldn't go for that. I would actually bring Hurley in and play him as a defender on Waite. Because Hooker has been shown in the last few weeks he is an excellent zone defender, and he is able to come in and give out the third man up and chop out. However, as a one-on-one defender, especially against someone who can tear apart a game like Waite, I'd be more inclined to play Hurley down there and let Hooker have free reign to come in as the third man up and impact the contest in that way. But it'll be interesting to see what to do, because we obviously do have our problems up forward as well. I guess the question is, do we trust Danaher and Cramery to handle the bulk of our forward line work and allow Hurley to go back? Or do we feel that we need Hurley up forward to kick a winning score and then have to rely on Hooker in a one-on-one matchup?
I think it's a good point that you raised there as well. I think it's a good thing to have both Hurley and Carlisle as those swingmen sort of thing, because the issue that I can see with that sort of plan, even though it is a good plan, I think we may have an issue with Hurley just coming back from injury. Will he be confident in his movements? Because we've known before, if Hurley comes back from injury, he doesn't often have a breakout game straight away. He often, will struggle a little bit to get back into the pace of the game, and then will, a few weeks later, continue on and have a decent sort of game.
Yeah, the problem
inevitably being injured again.
Yeah, the problem with Hurley is he has his breakout game, which is sort of a silver lining. He breaks out the game, and he also breaks his damn wrist every time. So, and he does take a lot of time to work back into it. So it's not going to happen straight away. But I mean, he has shown a long. He's got a habit of coming into the side and being able to play as a defender straight away. However, in that unnatural position as a forward, he seems to take his time to build up on it.
Exactly right. Yep.
But anyway, so I guess we'll move on to a prediction really, because there's not much we can say about the Carlton game except cross our fingers and hope for the best. So, Herb, what's your prediction for the match?
I will be there and I will be screaming loud and proud, but I honestly can't see our boys getting up for this one. After a week like what we've just had, we might have a steering sort of win against the big rivals and everything, and the emotional outpouring after that game will probably be the best thing that any of us will experience for a long time, but I just can't see it happening, and I'm tipping Carlton by 22 points.
F?
I'm going to go the opposite direction. I reckon there's nothing better than to Carlton think that they're going to make finals now. How much better would it be to just bury that dream? I reckon the boys will be fired up and wanting to beat Carlton to destroy their hope of finals. So I reckon.
Well, just on that point, if Essendon do win on the weekend, then Carlton's season is over pending any ASADA investigation or AFL charges. So mathematically, would be ruining their chances if we do win. However, obviously there's external influences at play, so they might try and cling on to ninth.
Yeah. But yeah, I reckon we'll get up by 15 points.
Unfortunately, I share the cynicism of Hurd is my hero, and I'm thinking Carlton by 78 points.
Shit.
Yeah. I think this season is shot. I just don't think they have the effort in them. And I said on the game day thread last week with the North Melbourne game when Job was trying to rally the troops and Goddard was as well. It was at that point where we were either going to respond and try and turn our season around, or it was gone. And I think we all saw what happened, and I just can't see. I think we might fight for a quarter, maybe two, but I think we're just going to get run over in the end. So, Carlton by 78, unfortunately. But I will be there too. I hope you are too, F, with the Danked meeting.
I'll be at the game.
Oh.
At least we'll be drunk.
Exactly. And if you're not drinking and going to the go to the Danked meeting, get along, have a good day, meet some of the Essendon posters. At least you can hang your hat on that. But in any case, we'll wrap up our game preview there. And before we get onto the AFL charges, here is a bit of a news update on where the charges stand. The AFL on Wednesday made public the notice of charges, which formed the basis of why Essendon was charged for bringing the game into disrepute. The 34-page document contains 135 points, which the AFL believes justifies the charges laid upon Essendon. Some of the more pertinent points in the charges include the allegation that Vimesine Beta-4 was used by the players. That, along with a mystery drug sourced from Mexico, and that harassment was used by several members of staff, make up the most concerning of the points found in the document. Club chairman Paul Little and coach James Hird vigorously deny many of the charges, believing that the release of the document was an AFL ambush, and that the club had lost faith in the AFL executive to handle the saga. A commission hearing is still scheduled for Monday, where it appears likely that Essendon will accept a deal whereby the club loses its points for 2013, receives a $1.5 million fine, keeps its draft picks, and James Hird and Danny Corcoran would accept a ban of no more than 12 months, while the fate of Dr. Bruce Reid and Mark Thompson remain unclear. So, after hearing those charges, boys, what are your reactions to that? Are you shocked, appalled, or do you think that there's nothing in them and it's just the AFL grandstanding? Hird, do you want to go first?
Honestly, wasn't too shocked when I saw the charges put out before us. I didn't expect too much else. Obviously the sort of inclusion of the Thymosin Beta 4 was a bit of a rough one for me. I didn't see too much that I didn't expect. Aside from the Thymosin thing, it seemed pretty clear cut to me. I think there's some dodgy stuff that's gone on in the club, and obviously there will be some punishment handed down in some form. But the Thymosin thing with those text messages from Stephen Dank really got me slightly concerned. I think you wouldn't really be too much of an Essendon follower if you weren't concerned by that sort of thing. Seeing what's gone on at our club and hearing that sort of stuff does not fill you with utmost confidence. But look, I've said it the entire way through, and I'll say it again now. You got to stand by the club in the situation. Obviously, they know what they're doing in the best sort of way they can. Seeing Thymosin on that sort of list with the Mexican vial that was mentioned, it does make you wonder about what's happened at the club and who in particular has messed it all up. But I don't know. I think it's just a matter of patience now, and hopefully true justice, like natural justice, can be served.
Yep. F, what were your reactions to the charges?
Honestly, I wasn't surprised either. Ever since the start of August, I thought it was just a matter of time before this stuff came out, and it has, and I say get it over and done with quickly, make sure that get the charges out of the way and, play football next year, hopefully. Strip us of all points if it's necessary. Take away draft picks if it's necessary. I just want it done.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the longer it lingers on, the more harm it does. So I guess where to from here, really? Do we continue to fight the charges? Do we negotiate a deal with the AFL? Or where do you want to see this go? F, do you want to follow up on that?
I think we need to negotiate. I mean, we're going to get either, we might get both stripping of draft picks, losing of all points, and to cop a massive fine. I want us to restrict it to two of those options. Either, and one of them has to be the fine. I can cop a $5 million fine, or whatever it'll be, and one of stripping of points and draft picks. If we continue to fight it, I reckon if we're found guilty, they'll whack all three on us, and yeah.
Yep, heard.
I'd like to see us fight the good fight, but look, let's all be honest, let's face the music here. The longer this drags on, the worse people are going to be suffering for it. The simple fact of the matter is it's not just about football, and it hasn't been for a long time. This is now families and people's lives being destroyed by what's happening. I do believe that James Hird's on the right. Obviously, username comes into effect there. I I have not ever been one to see Essendon in a bad light. That's not going to change. For us, I think we have to fight as much as we can, but that being said, it needs to be done soon, and I honestly don't see it happening. I think we need to try and do whatever we can to shorten the amount of time this will take, but I think it's probably just starting, like right now at this point in time. I think we're just at the start of what's going to be unraveling here. The consequences are going to be felt through the Essendon Football Club for a long, long time yet. I don't think the AFL is going to look too kindly upon this whatsoever. That's the thing that's got me worried, is the future. I don't think they can strip points for 2014. I think that's a ludicrous assertion. 2013, I wouldn't be I wouldn't be concerned with. I think it's not quite an admission of guilt, more so that really doesn't affect anything at this point in time, because I don't see us being competitive in finals whatsoever. I think we need to try and just at least control what's happening, accept some punishments and everything, make sure there's... I think the issue now for me is that the individuals who are involved are the ones who, they're the ones at this point in time who care the most about it. Everyone else at this point in time is just over it, completely over it. I want to see James Hurd's name cleared as much as the next person, but if it's going to involve this taking an extra couple of months, then it's just going to add on more frustration. I'm just sick of it.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think you make a very good point with if this keeps on going, that the damage is just going to be more than it's going to be if we just accept the deal now. Mm. And while I have no problem with Essendon or any team taking on the AFL, the important thing is you got to pick your fights. And on this one, I don't think we've picked our fight well, because as it stands, it just seems like it's an ego fight, if anything, rather than an actual fight based on a genuine principle or something with a genuine outcome expected. So anyway, James Hurd can hold on to his position at Essendon because it's all well and good. He could be innocent. It's unlikely to be completely innocent. However, the fact remains that he's hired at Essendon as the senior coach, and for the last however long it's been, and for the near future, and maybe even the long-term future, I just don't see how he can do his job effectively while fighting AFL in his other time. And let's be honest, it's not in his spare time. We've seen recently where he hasn't been at a training, he hasn't been taking training because he's been off, dealing with the AFL or engaging with his lawyers. And the fact is, he's hired as a senior coach to coach the football club. And if he can't do that, if he can't give 100% of his time to doing that, then I just don't think he should be there.
Yeah, you just imagine the reaction from the general public. If he decides to step down for a little bit, you just imagine what's going to happen.
Oh, he can't win. He cannot win.
Yeah, that's the issue. I think even if he does win the court case, in the long term, there's no winners that can come out of this. Look, the AFL's messed up. James Hurd's messed up. The Essendon Football Club is messed up pretty badly. I think we can all agree on that. But in the long run, this is going to affect a lot of people for a long time. It's already affecting people. We even saw with David Evans, obviously with a health worry throughout this entire thing. It's just, I've just had enough of it. It's just driving me crazy. So I think we just need to control things as best we can. If that involves Jimmy stepping down for a little bit, just as a sort of temporary thing, I'm okay with that. But I think in the long run, he needs to be the coach of the Essendon Football Club. That's, Essendon Football Club is his home. It has been for since 1992, since prior to that. He's always been an Essendon man, and I think he deserves the utmost respect from us, and also from the general AFL community for the way he's handled this. The way he's handled himself throughout this entire investigation has been nothing short of stellar. I think the fact that he's remained silent, he has not given the media anything to go on. He's respected due process, which is something that hasn't been too prevalent throughout this entire ordeal. I think is a major sort of thing for us to focus on. I'm rambling a little, but really the thing is we need to support a great of our club at this point in time, and he needs to support himself. If he needs to step down, so be it. Yeah,
look, I'll put it this way. It's all about mitigating losses at the moment. There's not going to be any winners out of this as much as anyone. There's only the the most, well, the most core AFL supporters who, as in, you know, your door of promotions and your other supporters who get off on this sort of thing, they're going to be the only winners out of this, and even still, their club's not going to win out of it. And when it comes to Herd, in standing by the club, I must admit I've lost all faith in Paul Little. I think we've gone down the wrong course here. And it's all well and good to, as I said before, it's all well and good to fight City Hall if you've picked your fight. However, I don't think we've picked our fight here. I really don't. And I think the long-term repercussions of this are going to be huge. I mean, for instance, you know, we could lose Herd, we could lose the other three, and that's not. We could lose our points, we could lose draft picks, obviously fine, and that's just not the end of it as well. From there, we could also, the AFL can really screw us over. Obviously, they have full control over the fixture, you know, time slots, teams we play, where we play. There's a lot that they can do for us and do to us, and that's just one of those things that you're going to be wary of as well. And I'm really think we've gone down the wrong course here, and I think Paul Little at the end of this does have to go, or even soon, because while he might be fantastic to have on the board, I just don't think his attitude and mindset towards dealing with this crisis is what we need at this point in time. Yeah.
It's all opinion, isn't it? I mean, I personally, I admire the way he's gone on the attack. It's something we haven't done for a long time. Well, no one's done. Against the AFL, I admire the way he's worded things, the way he's just approached this entire thing, coming on a bit late. I do have to wonder, though, like, whether or not this has been a good fight for us to pick, as you said. It's going to be a massive, it's already a massive thing. It's the biggest story in AFL ever. So yeah, I do wonder about Paul Little's sort of and the way he's approaching this. I appreciate it. I think it's a fantastic sort of notion, I guess. But in terms of long-term effects, I'm not sure how it's going to affect us. It won't be positive, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, F, have you got any thoughts on James Herd and Paul Little?
I think Herd recently, I have to say, I've lost a little respect for him in the way that he talked about the AFL. I think he's playing the victim too much. I don't think it's the right way he should have reacted to the charges, and I think Little's been the same. He's been too aggressive. I think we're screwed on this issue, and I know a lot of people say, and in some cases I do as well, the best defense is a good offense, but not in this situation. We should be cutting our losses and trying to get it as easy as possible on the club.
Yep. There's one other point I really want to make on this too, and to be honest, I don't want to hear again from the Essendon Football Club until they're willing to actually explain their side of the story. Because it's all well and good for them to say that to rely on due process and all that sort of stuff, and decline to comment. But as it stands, the interim report's been done with Fasada, all the interviews have been done, we've been charged. It is time that Essendon actually stood up and explained their side of the story. Because at the moment, all we keep hearing is, we're going to tell our side soon. And there's just so long we can actually cop that until we can they actually have to tell their side of the story.
Yep, absolutely agreed.
And, I don't want to hear again from Herd and Paul Little saying how these charges are outrageous and all that sort of stuff. Either defend the charges, explain why they're outrageous, or don't bother.
Yeah. I want to see it just end. So I want Essendon's story. That's the one everyone's going to be interested in. I think hearing Essendon's side of the story is going to be enormous. It's probably going to be a bigger sort of effect on general view than what the AFL's side is. The charges, the side of view, everything. I think it's going to be extremely interesting to read what Essendon, or read here, either way, to see what Essendon have actually got to say for what's actually happened here and get their sort of view on what's occurred at our club. I think that is going to be the telling sort of thing. If we're going to hear that soon, I don't know, but I really generally hope that we do, because that would be that's going to be the massive thing. That's going to be the thing that's going to really be swaying opinions.
Yeah. What about you, F?
I'm over it. It'll be interesting to read the Essendon side of the story, but quite frankly, they've had so long to rehearse it. It may be just yada yada yada. We're all victims. Yada yada yada. And if it's that, I will lose a lot of respect for this club I love, really.
Yeah, there's no doubt that we as supporters love this club, and it's probably why for this long we've been willing to tolerate we'll tell our story eventually, but there comes a point where, you've got to man up and you've got to say what's actually happened, because at this stage, all we've got is a charge sheet in front of us, in essence saying it's an ambush and it's absurd. Well, what is absurd about it? That's what we want to know. We want specifics.
Mm-hmm.
And, that might sound selfish and self-entitled and all that sort of stuff, but, we are the club, as the supporters, just as much as we are as as Paul Little is and the various other staffers at the Essendon Football Club.
Yeah.
And I just, we just want some clarity on this issue. And it's all well and good to say, because the main reason why we haven't at least beforehand, we haven't wanted to see Hurd stand down or anyone else stand down, is because of a lack of facts. However, the only thing resembling any sort of facts that have been issued so far is the Essendon is the AFL releasing this statement of charges.
Mm-hmm.
And until Essendon actually rebut this list of charges specifically, then as I see it, the current administration and members of the football department, their positions are untenable.
Yeah.
But also I thought it was, and I can't stand back and just see how Bruce Reed's letter and his concerns were just pushed to the side as well.
Yeah, that's not right.
I think that was one of the more damning things to come out of the list of the statement of notice of charges.
Given that letter, I'm confused how he's being charged.
I think the main concern the AFL have with him is that A, he didn't have the proper protocols in place, and B, he informally accepted or approved the use of AOD 9604.
Yeah, seems like they even though were a bit concerned about it.
But even said that, I think Mark Thompson as well was fair reason to be aggrieved by the AFL's decision to charge him, because what's the only thing that seems to be against him is he told Danked in May of 2012 that the injections were stop, but he didn't follow through with it. However, they haven't highlighted a hierarchy of commands at the Essendon Football Club to say that Mark Thompson was in a position for that Danked had to obey.
Yeah,
and then following that, the other thing they really only have against Thompson is the fact that he didn't follow HR processes or something like that, and pretty much they said, well, it's your fault that they hired him. And fair enough if the HR hasn't been followed to the letter and all that sort of stuff, but that's not enough to suspend someone for bringing the game into disrepute.
Yeah, I think as we were mentioning last week, in the podcast last week, as we said that when the charges were announced, that we thought the one against Mark Thompson was really left field. I think that's generally been proven to be correct. From what you've just said, I think his proposed suspension makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. The punishment has to fit the crime is the main sort of thing that's been floating around at this point in time, and I think that's very much a case in point in terms of what Thompson's going through at this point in time. I think his case is extremely strong on his side, and he's even said on TV that 90% of it is just absolute bullshit. I think that's something that fills a lot of Essendon fans with hope as to what is going to be happening with Bomber. I just don't see how the AFL or anyone could make the charges against him stick. They're just too flimsy.
Yeah, look, I think he'll defend to the hill his reputation. I think him and Reed, maybe to a lesser extent, will manage to see through this. But I think Hurd and Conquerin are in a bit of trouble. And also of interest in the report, or the charges from the AFL, it lists, it was reported that there'd be other individuals as well who would face charges down the track. And there was 4 other names, I think, that were mentioned who currently aren't at the club, so who obviously haven't been charged at this point. And those are Stephen Dank, Dean Robinson, Paul Hamilton, and Ian Robson. So they look like the other 4 individuals who haven't come out this well.
Yeah.
So, on the positive side, David Evans doesn't look like he's in any trouble at all.
Yep.
None of the other assistant coaches look like they're going to be charged with anything, so that's probably good for Simon Goodwin's career prospects.
Yep.
Yeah.
But apart from that, there's nothing really positive come out. I mean, for God's sake, apparently there was one of the drugs used was an animal drug.
Yeah, I read that.
For canines and horses.
Yeah, I saw that.
Why were you using it?
Isn't it? I'll have a look at the proper name for it, but it's something like lube for all.
Yeah, that's the one. There's the amount of jokes on Twitter about that one. That was a ripper.
Yeah, I thought that was a genuine lubricant, but no. Apparently, it's a fucking canine and horse supplement.
Yeah. There you go. Heart of a racehorse.
Exactly.
Longer.
And I mean, if that sort of stuff has been administered, then I'm sorry, but most of the football department and the administration who were in charge of that need to go.
Yeah, I think the saving grace here is that so far there's been no real evidence to suggest that the players were given anything. That's the main thing. There's been no hard evidence laid down to say that, hey, you guys took this and here's the proof.
Yep.
So I think that's what Essendon's saving grace is at this point in time. Like, it's still a case of innocent until proven guilty. I mean, everyone knows that Essendon's done something wrong, but they just can't figure out what. But that said, the charges don't really relate too much to the drug taking or anything like that. It's just the bad sort of processes that we had.
Having said that, the drugs are used. The fact that we were either using wider prohibited substances or can't prove that we didn't, which I think is kind of dodgy in the fact that you have to prove that you didn't use them. But however, the fact that that's been mentioned and the AFL have relied on the internal report, so I mean they'll make a large part of any legal challenge that Hurd or the football club do make.
Yeah. And
Hurd has submitted a writ to the Supreme Court suing the AFL, in particular Andrew Demetriou and Gillan McLaughlin.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be interesting to see what happens out of that, especially if McLaughlin and Demetriou have to testify, because Hurd has alleged that he was in contact with, or they were in contact with journalists with providing them information from the AFL investigation.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be very interesting if they have to testify who they've talked to.
Yeah, we can all imagine who.
I think we have a fair idea.
Yeah.
In any case, I think we'll wrap that up there with the Asada stuff, because I mean, it's just when you've talked about it for 7 months, I don't think people really want to hear it. I think after a while, you just got to stop and let it play out.
Yeah, it's all opinions now, isn't it?
It is all opinions, and it's all he said, she said, and the sooner it is over, the better, for everyone's sake.
Yeah.
So, again, we'll go back to an optimistic note before we finish up. So, what are we looking forward to this weekend? F?
Hopefully beating Carlton. Yeah, that's it.
Hurt?
Look, I'm just looking forward to getting out to the... Obviously, having the BigFooty meet-up before the game this weekend will be a cracker. Always is a good time. I think that the game. Should be a decent spectacle, at least for a little bit. It's always good to get away from the grind of our life and everything. When you're at the football and you're watching the team play, you're not thinking about the USARD investigation. You're not worried about it. You're just watching the team, and you're watching, a group of boys that represent the club that we love. I think that's always a highlight for my week, is going to the footy and just getting to watch some football, because soon enough it's going to be over again for another year and we're going to be wanting it back. And that's the thing. That's what the game's about. It's not about drugs. It's not about this is crap. It's not about bad governance. It's about the game of football. It's about watching a game of football and screaming to your heart's content and just loving the game in general. I think that is something that a lot of Essendon supporters have completely forgotten about throughout this entire thing. I've got I've got one friend in particular who's just completely abandoned the club. He is no longer a supporter of Essendon Football Club, and he decided not too long ago that he just didn't want to support us anymore. And that's a shit attitude to have. You've got to stand by the club. You've got to watch the boys play as best they can. You've got to just support the effort they're putting in. Everything that's gone wrong with this club, there's going to be some positives to come out of it at some point. We just have to wait and see. We just have to watch the footy, have to enjoy the footy as best we can, I guess. And if Carlton get a loss in the meantime, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, just on your point about people dropping off and standing by the club, I think it's important to realise that individuals may come and go. Dank's gone, Robinson's gone, Herb may go, and others may go as well. But the club remains, and this club has had players like Coleman, Reynolds, Michael Long, Simon Madden, and it's so you don't necessarily need to stand by these individuals, but stand by the club, because the club's always going to be there, and the club's always going to provide great memories down the road. And it's a weak attitude. I can understand why people might not want to deal with this anymore, but that's the only thing I can do, is implore people to stick by the club and not the individuals within the club, but stick by the actual football club itself and the ideals that it stands upon.
Absolutely.
And anyway, you mentioned the next tank gathering. For those who don't know, it's 3:00 at the London Tavern Hotel in Richmond. That begins at about 3:00, but feel free to come anytime up until probably head off about 7:10 to the game. Despite the name, you do not have to drink. It's not. Most people will be drinking, because no doubt they're going to be aware of the belting that's probably going to happen to us later on. And if we learn any lessons from last year's tank before the Carlton game, it is that you need a copious amount of alcohol to deal with any potential thrashing. So, get along, even if you drink or you don't drink. If you're male, female, post a lot on BigFooty, or you don't post a lot on BigFooty. It's just fantastic to put a few faces to names, and it's always a fantastic experience when you meet, when you get to, sit around for a few hours with people who are as passionate about football as you are. And it's a great day, so get along to it. F, that's directed at you as well.
Yeah, I know.
And, 3:00 at the London Tavern Hotel in Richmond. It's only a stone's throw away from the MCG, and the closest station is Richmond Station. Check out the, Tanked for Drinking the Game into Disrepute thread on the Essendon board if you want further details on that and who is actually going at this point. But in any case, just another housekeeping news. Once again, this podcast is available on iTunes, so you can listen on your way to work or whatever it is you do. Probably not the gym, as speculated last week, but I am open to suggestions. And so I just want to thank F and Her's My Hero for coming in. It's always a pleasure.
No worries, thank you for having me.
Yep.
And, as always, see the Bombers fly up.
The teams they don't fear, they all try their best, but they can't get near.